Okay, let's have a look at the components of CAP. So what are the elements or components of a curriculum? The major components or elements for most curricula are the aims, goals, and objectives, the subject content, the learning experiences, and evaluation approaches. Now, we can translate these into questions. Each component can be interpreted as what is to be done, what subject matter is to be included, what instructional strategies, resources, and activities will be employed, and what method and instruments will be used to assess the results of the curriculum. Now, looking at CAPS, let's look at component 1, the aims, goals, and objectives. Now, in a curriculum, these goals are made simple and specific for the attainment of each learner. They are called educational objectives. Now, Benjamin Bloom and Robert Mager defined educational objectives in two ways. Firstly, they must have an explicit formulation of the ways in which students are expected to be changed by the educative process, and they must have intent communicated by a statement describing a proposed change in the learners. In other words, objectives direct a change in behavior, which is the ultimate aim of learning, and provide the basis for the selection of learning content and learning experiences. And there are a set of criteria against which learning outcomes will be evaluated. Now, the aims, goals, and objectives, if we continue, identify and solve problems and make decisions using critical and creative thinking. They work effectively as individuals and others as members of a team, organize and manage themselves and their activities responsibly and effectively, collect, analyze, organize, and critically evaluate information, communicate effectively using visual, symbolic, and/or language skills in various modes, and they use science and technology effectively and critically, showing responsibility towards the environment and health of others, and they will demonstrate an understanding of the words as a set of related systems by recognizing that problem-solving contexts do not exist in isolation. So those are the critical cross-field, the critical outcomes of the CAPS curriculum, which you will find in section. Now, the specific aims of natural science are that learners should be able to complete investigations, analyze problems, and use practical processes and skills in evaluating solutions. So that's the doing science. Learners should have a grasp of scientific, technological, and environmental knowledge to be able to apply it in new contexts. That is the knowing science. And learners should understand the uses of natural science and indigenous knowledge in society and the environment. In other words, they understand science in society. So those are the aims of the CAPS curriculum. Now let's look at the component 2, the content or subject matter. The content is the information to be learned in school. It's another term for knowledge. The 4 content areas or knowledge strands in the natural sciences curriculum are life and living, which is biology or life sciences, matter and materials, which is chemistry, energy and change, which is the physics, planet Earth and beyond, which is the astronomy and geology, and each knowledge strand is developed progressively across the 3 years. Now, in the curriculum, or in CAPS, the content is presented as didactic statements. So here's an example from grade 7, diversity of animals. Animals are classified as either vertebrates, animals with backbones, or invertebrates. That is a didactic statement. Vertebrates are subdivided into 5 classes on the basis of distinguishing characteristics. Another didactic statement. Now, different instructional strategies, now we're looking at the curriculum experiences, which is component 3, provide the experiences that learners need. The instructional strategies and methods will put into action the goals of the curriculum through the use of the content in order to produce an outcome, which is what we want to measure. So teaching strategies convert the written curriculum into action. These will include a multitude of teaching methods and educational activities which will enhance learning. Both the teacher and the learner take actions to facilitate learning. So the teacher has to do something, the student has to do something, or the learner has to do something, and the actions are based on planned objectives. So the subject matter to be taught and the support materials to be used. Now, whatever methods the teacher utilizes to implement the curriculum should always consider the following. The teaching methods are means to achieve the ends. They are used to translate the objectives into action. There's no single best teaching method, so please realize that. A teaching method should stimulate the learner's desire to develop the cognitive, psychomotor, social, and spiritual domain of the individual. And in the choice of the teaching methods, learning styles of the students should be considered, so you are trying to be inclusive, and every method should lead to the development of the learning outcomes, or in this case, the specific aims in the 3 domains of the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor areas. Flexibility should be a consideration in the use of your methods. Now, to finish the curriculum experiences, instructional strategies need to develop a range of process skills, develop language skills in terms of reading and writing. This is from CAPS. Utilize textbooks as a resource and allow learners to work together and become familiar with equipment and or improvised equipment and to use that equipment safely. The CAPS document provides suggested activities and a list of the resources and equipment you will need for each section, as you can see there. Now finally, a curriculum evaluation. To be effective, you must have an element of evaluation in a curriculum. This refers to the formal determination of the quality, effectiveness, and value of the program, the process, the product of the curriculum. In other words, learners. There are different types of evaluation methods that can be used, like diagnostic, placement, formative, summative, evaluation of the norm or criterion referenced evaluation. So there are different ways to evaluate it. Now, regardless of the methods and materials used for evaluation, a suggested plan of action for the process of curriculum evaluation needs to include these steps. Focus on one particular component of the curriculum, collect and gather information, organize that information, analyze that information, report that information, and recycle information for continuous feedback, modifications, and adjustments to be made. Now, CAPS only outlines the following related to assessment: how to use informal assessment in the classroom, key issues related to formal assessment, the types of a formal assessment that can be used in natural science, issues related to recording and reporting, issues related to moderation. So does it appear that CAPS' only focus in terms of evaluation is, are the learners passing? They equate this evaluation to high pass rates. Does a high pass rate mean a good curriculum? Or do poor pass rates mean a bad curriculum?